Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, and today we dive into the world of personal and business transformation with the very wonderful John Lewis. And John is the brains behind JL Mindset Performance. John is dedicated to guiding you on your journey towards achieving your goals, whether as an individual or as part of a team. Welcome, John. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jodie. I've never been called the brains before, but I love it.
The brains behind the madness.
Brains.
So can you give me just a defining moment, I suppose, or an experience that inspired you to establish your company?
Okay, so for me, I'd always had jobs, but I've always felt that there was always more within me, like I had more to give, just through naturally how I enjoyed being with people and helping people and supporting people. And that kind of want to do something different professionally coincided with, ironically, a running race that I was in, because I used to run at quite a good level, half marathons, 10Ks. And one race in particular, I was struggling with a sore hip, but at the same time, the race was getting a bit tough. And I then started having this internal conversation of, okay, is it my mind using the hip as an excuse for it being tough, or is my hip genuinely hurting? Anyway, I finished the race, but it kind of led me down this whole psychology of not just myself, but other people, and coincide that with the fact I've always loved helping people and supporting people. It then was a defining moment, because as I said at the start, of looking more into what I want to do as a career, and it kind of then guided me to the whole understanding the psychology of people, not that I'm a qualified psychologist, to be able to support people. So that run was the defining point where it was like, okay, this is definitely something that I want to kind of pursue.
That was the difficulty in kind of pushing through it's mind over matter, isn't it? And kind of pushing through that physical pain and everything that sometimes, but also when you think about mental health, I suppose, and I've certainly had it in the past, where you do get physical symptoms because of your mental health.
Definitely.
Which you would think, well, that doesn't make sense.
No.
I haven't physically hit my chest or or done something physically to myself, but your chest hurts and I get terrible headaches when I'm really stressed. And so, kind of focusing on that, we, within the block management industry, we are focusing a lot on mental health. Yeah. And obviously, me being a woman, I focus on women's mental health. Yeah. But you do a lot of men's mental health coaching. And so what are the common challenges, do you think, that you've observed around men discussing their mental health?
I feel privileged and honoured, and I say that in capital letters. I feel privileged and honoured when I do work with ladies, but I am seeing more of a trend in men now who, want to come and sit with me and can speak openly and, non-judgmentally. And I think the biggest trend that I see with men is because they might be successful professionally, but they have family, they have bills, they have all these layers that get put on top of themselves that actually sometimes they forget about themselves and the core person underneath all this. Because, like I always say, Jodie, is life happens, and it happens quick. And
Indeed.
Before you know it, you get caught up in I feel as though I'm spiralling here, or I'm not feeling my best. And it's a combination of everything that's been layered on top of the person. So I think for me, the trend I see with men who I'm supporting is they need a bit of time out to kind of centralise their self and work with the person underneath all these layers before we put all the hats back on. Yeah. And I feel honoured and privileged to do it. And again, I think coaching now, whereas before we're kind of becoming more educated on mental health, as time goes, which is fantastic. Whereas I think a lot of men always thought, well, I don't need a therapist because nothing happened to me when I was young, for example.
Of course. And it sounds a bit fluffy for a man, doesn't it? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all, but I think the mindset of men sometimes is, I don't need that because I need to be big and I need to be strong and I need to be the protector and that sort of thing. But, am I right in saying that the highest suicide rate is with men?
Yeah. That period between 40, especially 45 and 49, is the biggest period of suicide in men. And again, as sad as those figures are, the stories into why men are taking their own lives, it's very individual based. And some of that may be the fact that they have been or undiagnosed with a mental health problem. And again, because of stigma or perceived stigma of what they think people are going to think about them, they don't open up, and then it accumulates and accumulates over years to a point of they see no other way, as horrible as it sounds.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, because we're talking about mental health more now, men are more comfortable opening up. There's still going to be pockets of men who don't, like there's still be pockets of ladies, and that may never change. Of course,
yeah, there's always going to be that person who is so intensely private that they just don't want to talk to anybody about anything. But I think that, the focus for our industry is very much, that it's a very difficult job. It's really demanded on your time as well, which takes you away from your family if you have one, but also takes you away from your hobbies. And, I'm not going to go to the gym today because I've got an email list that is just ridiculous, or an email inbox that's just ridiculous, or but you do need that step away, don't you? And so how do you go about breaking down those stigmas for men that need support?
I feel just by showing men that I'm human and I have feelings. Well, kind of, Jodie. It's debated.
Oh.
Thanks, Jodie.
I'm joking,
appreciate that.
Sometimes, you've got to just,
You do. You what say it as you see it. Yeah, thanks, Jodie. Yeah, I thought we got on, but obviously not. But no, I think by just humanising it, humanising the fact that we all have stuff going on, we all have feelings, we all have emotions, we all have behaviours that we may want to change. We all have habits. It's called being human. And I think the more human we can be about this and actually put our hand up and say, I'm putting my hand up here, this is for help, it's because I know there's more in myself to help me develop. And I think when you kind of can reframe it, okay, you're asking for help, which isn't a sign for weakness, it's because you recognise there might be more from you to come, or you're in a current position that you know that you don't want to be in, so you want to move on in your life. I think that's key. Less people say about stigma, let's just humanise it.
Yeah. There doesn't have to be one, does there? There doesn't have to be a stigma.
No.
For whatever you need to do to get through what you need to get through.
Exactly. And I think you touched on it there, where you've got an email list as long as your arm, and you've got all these kind of things going on in life, yet the solution to that is actually taking a step off of that and actually looking at, okay, what do I need to do for myself here? What works for me here? What do I need to be doing just to support myself, support myself as a person? Because when I support myself as a person better, I naturally am more productive in the business. Yeah. I'm naturally better at coping with these business pressures.
Absolutely.
And I think people just feel that they need to, the solution is just to keep working more.
Yeah.
And that's then the biggest cause of burnout.
Absolutely.
And you must see it in your industry,
We
Jodie.
see it all the time. And as you know, I've been through it as well, and that's where the physical signs of things come in, because I just thought, I've just got a cold, and then that turned into something else and something else and something else. And it just, and I say a lot about managing energy rather than managing your time, because sometimes you've got the energy to do a 12-hour day, but sometimes you've only got the energy to do a 5-hour day. And I know in your, in the corporate 9-to-5 world, that's not necessarily going to be looked upon as something that you should do, because also you can't just leave your job at 3:00 in the afternoon. But do you think there are ways around managing energy? In terms of, what am I trying to say? Like, if you are feeling tired, can you take, when somebody would go out for a 20-minute cigarette break, not that I encourage that, of course.
Yeah. But smoking's bad, kids.
Smoking is bad, kids. Don't do it. But, that's, your traditional office environment is somebody goes for their cigarette break. What's stopping somebody from getting up from their desk and just going for a 5-minute walk outside just to get some fresh air, to decompress, just to get away from the noise? Is that something that you're seeing more of in sort of traditional settings and that sort of thing?
I feel it all, again, stems from the culture that's created in the business or the sector in itself, because some people are too scared to take a 5-minute walk, Jodie, because they think it's a bad thing to do, and the business are going to look down on them. Oh, we can't take a 5-minute break, because again, it's people's perception 9 times out of 10, that they don't want to be seen to doing anything that's a detriment to the business. And taking a 5-minute break, for some people, you know, they perceive it's doing something detrimental to the business, when the opposite needs to happen. Because if they take that 5 minutes away, just go for a walk, for example, take some deep breaths,
or just go make a cup of tea,
have a reset, make a cup of tea,
just be on your own for 5 minutes,
eat some biscuits,
absolutely,
do what you need to, do some press-ups, do some sit-ups.
Not sure about that. Cup of tea and biscuits sounded much
exactly
better.
But again, I think, you know, a lot of businesses understand the importance of this now, and it can't just be lip service or a tick box exercise. Businesses know if the staff feel valued, then the staff are naturally going to want to perform better for the business. It's a two-way street. And something else I'm noticing more now in conversations I have, when people are looking for employment, they're not just looking for the monetary side of it, they're looking at the business's policy on mental health and how they would feel supported if they needed that support.
You know, it's something that we see a lot is, or I'm noticing a lot, I should say, that we can't do that. As much as we want to support you, as much as we want to do this and that, we can't because we don't have the budget, or we don't have the budget that can send you for, you know, those 6 counselling sessions or hypnotherapy or anything that might just help you in your day-to-day working life. But think about it a lot, quite, you know, resilience. And I always used to think, I don't have the confidence to do that. And I think it's more about I don't have the resilience sometimes, certainly within this industry. And I don't mean to be derogatory about our industry, because it's, you know, it's an exciting place to be a lot of the time, but it is very stressful. And sometimes you think, is it my confidence? Do I not want to deal with that situation because my confidence is really low? Well, actually, I've been doing this 17, 18 years now. I do have a lot of confidence in my ability and what I can do, but am I resilient enough sometimes to achieve X, Y, and Z? Because I don't want the backlash, or I don't want somebody, you know, 10 people might say something nice to me, but that one person who's not very nice to me will knock me down, and then I won't want to do it at all. And all I've sort of avoid situations and stuff. I mean, have you got any coping techniques or techniques around resilience that you can share?
Yeah, and I think you answered it perfectly yourself there, Jodie. So thank you for that.
It's all right.
Again, I think we generalise. Like you said, well, I don't feel confident in certain situations. I don't feel confident here. But if I were to say, okay, reflect on times you did feel confident, or reflect on a time you didn't think you were going to be confident and actually you were confident, it's same as resilience.
Yeah.
You know, for us to be sat here today proves that you've been resilient through your life, like I've been resilient through my life, without even probably labelling it. And I'm doing the old quotey thing up here. What are these called? Quotey,
air quotes.
Air quotes. You know, without being resilient. And it's something I do with clients, just a quick break of kind of thought pattern of, oh, well, I'm not resilient. I'll say, okay, can you remember a time you were resilient? And for some, it might take them a couple of minutes, because they might not have thought that was a resilient time or situation they were in.
Yeah.
But actually, when you think about times you were resilient, and if you were to sit and think about times you were resilient, I bet you can make a big list. You
can, and you know, you've been through every possible scenario and you've got through it. We've talked about stigma and that sort of thing, but in your coaching, is there like a common thread, do you think, around where people hit that wall and they don't really think, oh, I can't do it? Is there a common theme around that?
I think it all, again, depends on the individual.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to think words like confidence, resilience, belief, you know, all these words we say to ourselves which will evoke a feeling is very individualised. What I perceive as confidence in myself could be totally different to what you perceive. So it's just a feeling we put on a label. It's a feeling we put on a label. For some people, I would say the majority of people, it's always a lack of confidence. I'm not confident to do this. I'm not confident to do that. And actually, when you help people realise they've been confident in the past and actually give them tools to feel confident in the now, to go on into the future, which is showing resilience in itself, then people realise, I'm a true believer, Jodie, we've got all the resources we need to achieve what we need to achieve. Because 9 times out of 10, it's how we perceive ourselves in these said situations that stops us. When you help people overcome those barriers to be able to go on and achieve what they want to achieve, you realise there's only one thing stopping us, Jodie, and it's ourselves.
Yeah. Do you think fear comes into it?
Yeah, fear's a
as well.
massive one.
Yeah.
But then fear, again, is a label. Different people's levels of fear is different. What one person perceives as fear, another person perceives as a lack of confidence. So again, it's just it's a normalisation. It's a process. It's a word that evokes a feeling.
Yeah.
And when you realise that, it's just the story we're telling ourselves. And when you help people change the story they're telling themselves to actually overcome these situations, you realise you've felt the fear before. You've been confident before. You've been resilient before.
Yeah.
But we come to another situation, you think, I'm not resilient enough for this. Okay.
Yeah.
I think to answer the question, everybody's process is different. And
Yeah.
that's why there's not one blueprint to this. There's not a blueprint to life. There's not a blueprint
Wouldn't that
to...
be more convenient?
Wouldn't it be brilliant? And that's the truth with mental health, with coaching, is nobody's experience is the same. Okay, here's what this person's going to... Oh, they're saying they're feeling anxious. Okay, this is the steps in how they are processing this anxiety. It's not, because it's different. Same as confidence. Everybody's experience of confidence or their lack of confidence is different. So as a coach or other trained therapists, you know that everybody's experience is very individual. So you have to tailor everything to the individual, because their process and the way they're communicating with themselves will be different from person to person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going back to what we said about fear, that can create so many different emotions anyway, can't it? But when you think about, if you've had a confrontation with somebody, even if it's just one confrontation and that happened 5 years ago, maybe, like, I think your neural pathway, in a way, creates this, like, what am I trying to explain? Like, if you see an email come up from them, if you've had a confrontation with them 2 years ago, and every other email after that confrontation has been absolutely fine, you get on well and you see each other and everything's perfect, but you still have that level of nervousness when you're going to see them, or when their email pops up, or something. Well, I certainly do anyway. And I think that just comes from, for me, that comes from a fear of wanting to do better, but also wanting to be the best, in the air quotes, and that sort of thing, but to be the best for that person and to give that good service and that sort of thing. And if you've made a mistake along the lines and it's caused that confrontation, for me, that's kind of always in the back of my mind, that I don't want to do that again. And in some ways that can drive you forward, but in some ways that can push you away and make you think, I don't want to do that. I don't want to see that person, because what if? And that's what I mean about, when fear comes into it. It's quite scary sometimes, how your mind can just trick you into thinking, I'm not going to do that because of X, Y, and Z. But actually, that's not even going to happen.
No, and that's it. It's a story you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
It's a learned behaviour. You've seen that email 2 years ago. And when your body sees that email, it's brought up the feelings.
You again,
exactly. But then look how you've kind of used it to drive you.
Yeah.
Like you said, because you don't want to make that, and I'm doing the air quotes again, because I don't know if it was a mistake or not. And again, I'm a true believer, there is no failure, only feedback. It comes back to the blueprint. Nobody has the blueprint to life. It's a case of holding your hand up and saying, I've made a mistake there. Give me the feedback, because I want to do better.
Yeah.
And again, that fear, it can push you on. And that's the thing. People always think, wow, all these emotions are bad. Let's put them in this category, and all these emotions are good.
Yeah.
Truth of life is,
you need them both.
You need them all. You
Absolutely.
need to know what good feels like, to know what sad feels like.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to the depths of depression and whatnot, because again, there's experts out there who can help with that. But we have a whole range of emotions, and they're all information.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a bit here.
Oh gosh, what do you want me to sing?
Well, without sharing names or anything like that, obviously, in confidentiality, can you share a success story from somebody, or a situation where your mindset coaching has pulled them out of something they never thought they could be pulled out of?
Wow, that has put me on the spot. Again, for me, because I cross a lot in like life, business, sport. I've sat in front of world champions. I've sat in front of world champions who technically are the best, tactically they're the best, yet going into these competitions, they're telling themselves a story where they're getting, and again we say about emotions all being informations or whatnot, but they were finding these emotions they were feeling weren't serving them.
Right.
So again, it was helping them process those emotions maybe getting them, to think and feel in a different way, to then be able to go on and perform. Thinking of something there, because again, it's true of everyone. Everyone has their own stuff. To what depths they have their stuff is, again, a personal thing for the person. The level of support they need can depend on the depths that they're feeling, because everybody is different, and a lot of people don't know what kind of support they need.
No, some people just need that day to download their feelings onto somebody else, isn't it? And just try and get that somebody else to understand where they're coming from, and just give them a few hints and tips. And some people need ongoing support.
Yeah.
Do you do both? Do you do a day coaching and an ongoing coaching support program?
As a husband and a dad, I offer my family some good coaching support at a very good rate.
Oh, right. Makes sense.
They never listen to me, but I'm just dad.
Yeah, not supposed to.
Exactly, yeah. Or they listen to what they say and do the opposite anyway. Every individual personal business is different, with the outcome they're looking for, with the level of support they need. And one thing that I always stand by, Jodie, I have clients who I see once every week. I have clients who I see once a fortnight. I have clients who I see once a month. I have clients who I see once and never see them again. I have clients who I see once and they come back when they need, because it's down to the person and the level of support they need. Again. I've never ever said to anybody, okay, I need to just see you once every 2 weeks for the next 6 months. Or at the end of a session, a client will say to me, okay, when do you want to see me next? And my response is always, you tell me when you want to see me next. It's the worst business model in the world, Jodie, but it's the most ethical.
Yeah,
because
in some ways you want to make yourself redundant from having to help that particular person, because you've done everything that you need to do with them and they're flying.
As much as I love this and I love speaking and I love doing all these at the front stage kind of things, I can't juggle or anything, but for me the biggest pleasure is me sitting back watching a client or somebody who I've worked with, watching them doing what they love, giving the best to their potential, and me just sitting back saying, I believed in you, or I believe in you, and I'm so proud of you, and just being sat at the back.
Oh, it gives you that moment of pride. That's lovely.
Yeah, love it.
There are more men in block management, really, certainly in leadership positions, than women. Something that I'm hoping to change, obviously, as time moves on.
I'm sure you will, Jodie.
Oh, thank you. But from an advice perspective for men in leadership positions within our sector, how would you advise them to promote mental health awareness and support within their team? How would you advise them to not necessarily be the one to support, but to help people, to point them in the right direction and encourage them, I suppose?
Communication. Do you know, communication is the biggest skill we own as humans. Again, these are my opinions.
Okay.
Just for the record. Communication is either the biggest skill and the most facilitating thing we can do, or it can be the biggest hindrance.
Yeah.
Because if we're not communicating the right things, then people can spiral, because they're not getting clear messages, they're not getting clear instructions, which then can lead them to feel anxious. What am I doing wrong? What am I not doing right? I think for kind of block management, and men especially, to communicate with other block managers, male, female or whatnot, that, again, it's okay to talk, and there are going to be days when we're stressed. There's going to be other days we're feeling great. There's going to be other days where we want to do more. There's other days when we're going to be feeling fear. There's going to be other days when we're feeling anxious, but it's part of being human. You need to understand your range of kind of feelings to then know, okay, this is now something a little bit deeper where I may need extra support. Giving people the empowerment
and the space
to say, okay, as a man working in block management in a leadership position, I'm human too.
Yeah.
And I don't feel great all the time, and I don't feel low all the time. And by kind of humanising it from leadership position, it actually then takes away that stigma, well, their leadership, they must have life sorted. And by, again, normalising from top to bottom, we're all human and we all need help at some point, whether that's professional help, whether that's just offloading.
And having a safe space. I said, giving somebody space to voice what they need and that sort of thing, but also to know that they're in a safe environment to do so, and they're not going to be judged. I think that was one of my biggest fears when I was working in in other companies that if I went to my employer and said, I'm really struggling today, or I'm really struggling with this particular person because, not because of the work, but because our personalities just clash.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm doing the best, but it never seems to be good enough, and that's triggering me in some way, and to know that you've got that safe space to go to your employer to say that, I think is so incredibly important. Because I didn't always have that, unfortunately.
No, I think it touches on something we said earlier, Jodie, and it seems like block management is, I know you and I feel I know you quite well. I know it's the landscape you're trying to kind of have your hand in developing in kind of in a culture sense, making it's okay to talk. Yeah. We can talk.
Making it safe.
Yeah, and we touched on it in the business, what can businesses do? If the culture is right and people feel they're in a place where they can open up, then it creates for a better place.
Yeah, definitely.
And businesses don't have all the answers, but if businesses hold their hands up and say, we don't have the answers all sorted, again, we've not got the blueprint to this, but, as a business, we're looking at how we can make changes if we need to. We're looking at how we can best support our staff.
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to communication. Be open and honest.
And admitting that you don't have all the answers, and admitting that actually what I think might be good for you might be the worst thing for you. So tell me what you need.
I love it.
So looking ahead into 2024 and beyond, obviously.
Wow.
Have you got any projects coming up that you're doing, or any exciting talks, or?
Yeah, what have I got coming up? Do you know, since 2024 started, it's just been, for me in a business sense, it's like 23 ending, 24's just been like, wow, straight in the fast lane.
Absolutely.
It's been brilliant. So in regards to talks and whatnot, I'm coaching quite a lot of individuals, got training courses coming up, mental health first aid, which seem to have really, again this year, a lot of inquiries and a lot of courses already in the diary to be delivering. I've also got the pleasure of delivering a 3-hour workshop to AAT, the accountants.
Oh, wow, okay.
They've invited me along end of, I'm not going to give you the specific date because I can't remember, but I need to get my calendar. They've invited me to do a morning workshop on stress.
Oh, brilliant.
Giving them tools and techniques to go away with, and ironically they've got to do it after January because this month is the most stressful time for them. Exactly, yeah. Just again, business growth, doing what I can, doing these brilliant podcasts, and just from a selfish point of view, making my business more visible. The kids are getting bigger, the wife's, I won't say she's getting bigger.
No,
don't say that.
That will get you in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. She's not hearing this now, is she?
Not right now. Shall I cut it out?
Hi, Hayley. If you don't stop and smell the roses, Jodie, before you know it, it's going to be end of the year. The kids will be older. So it's important. In amongst all that, I run. I do things to maintain
your own mental
my
health.
Own mental health because again, I can't give my best to people if I'm not putting myself first. I would say self-care is not selfish.
It's not.
It's not selfish.
No, you can't look after anybody else if you're at the bottom of the pile, can you?
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jodie.
Really appreciate it. So how can everybody find you if they want to?
Okay, I'm sat here in the studio.
Got a tracker on you.
Oh, no, I think they turned that off.
Okay.
So my website is jailmindsetperformance.co.uk. Email john@jailmindsetperformance.co.uk. My phone number, can I give a phone number?
You can give your phone number if you want to.
Okay, 07947 808 675. And I think that's probably I'm on Facebook,
LinkedIn, all of the usual platforms.
Instagram, all that usual stuff. Yeah, I'm not very good with it, but
don't Google John Lewis because you know what will come up, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Brilliant. All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and incredible insights.
Thank you, Jodie. I really enjoyed that.